Green Lantern Corps, issue 3, legacy number 106. So, yeah, we had the cliffhangers last time. Atrocitus and some of the other Red Lanterns were using Zilius?
Zilius Zox.
There you go. And all his rage to power their ship. But we get a bit more context for that, and we find out that the Red Lanterns almost entirely died when their power battery was destroyed, and the book goes into that quite some way, where a few of them survive basically just because their rings still had enough charge to kind of keep them going for a bit. And we get kind of like the idea that they were invaded by this, other alien force, these slavers, and they basically fought back once Zilius like had all that rage sort of like erupt through him. So this ship they've got is actually one they took. They sort of basically defeated the slavers and took it. So in a weird way, it makes you kind of sympathize with Atrocitus in that during this.
Which I always feel like we forget Atrocitus' origin, where his entire sector was taken out by the Manhunters, right? I just remember, I think it was in Blackest Night, where his thing is, and we did nothing. And it was like this thing, like we were just existing, and then the Manhunters wiped out. And he had all this rage and nowhere to put it, and that's how the Red Lantern Corps. So the fact that they're getting back to kind of that, where we're feeling a little bit of sympathy for these, characters that are out and out monsters, at least that's how they're presented, I appreciated that a lot. And then with what we've seen, what that Red Lantern energy, right, when it's all housed in that one being can do. So I feel like we understand the stakes here, that Zilius is going to burn up, and then that's kind of it for the Lantern Corps, right, for the Reds. And that's, so I was a little bit invested, a little bit more, knowing all of this from reading both books at the same time.
Yeah, they referenced it multiple times that Zelius would be exploding if it wasn't for the fact that they were siphoning all the energy off to run the ship. And that becomes a big problem later when the ship gets torn in half and Zelius is going to explode, and Atrocitus actually kind of tries to absorb it to save him, and ultimately it ends up being Shiera's mace that kind of like the nth metal absorbs enough of it to save Atrocitus, but Atrocitus is ready to sacrifice himself to save Zilius. So it does do a good job of like saying, hey, he actually does care about the people in his core. He's not just this awful like monster, like you say. So I think that moment works quite well. Obviously this idea that Hawkwoman does want to just kill him, but John keeps talking her out of it, and then ultimately she's the one that helps save him, and she remembers, oh yeah, being a hero is not just like flying off the handle and killing people. This is of course ignoring what breaks the ship in half in the first place, which is that giant egg of nth metal that came out of the remains of Thanagar. It hatches, and inside it is Horus.
Yes, the Thanagarian deity that is, I think, and this is why I miss having Connor on the show, because in Egyptian mythology, one of their major gods is Horus, son of Osiris. And so, I'm not that well versed in Thanagarian lore and whatnot, but if the idea is that the Thanagarians came to ancient Egypt and that their concept of Horus is what gave the Egyptian god Horus its form, I think that really checks out. But to have this gigantic eagle-headed golden deity pop up and destroy this, like, I can't say that it's metal enough. This was rad as hell.
You say gold. It is gold in color, but more specifically, it's made of nth metal.
Yes, it's a big nth metal deity, right? But yeah, I was using gold as the color, not as the what it's made out of, right? But yeah, it is speaking in hieroglyphics, right? So we don't know what it's saying, but it's angry. It's angry. It's been woken up.
Yeah. So and all through this, like, there's a little bit with Kilowog and Razor, and Kilowog trying to pep Razor back up and saying, hey, you feel bad because of sorrow over there. But a lot of this big part is like try to like hold the ship together. John has to kind of make a big construct to try and keep it intact as they're evacuating all the people off the ship, and it's all big action stuff. It's really cool, and that leads to what we were talking about earlier with Zilius like overloading and Atrocitus almost sacrificing himself by like taking the energy from him, and then ultimately Hawkwoman kind of diffusing it a little bit. So. No, it's a big thing, and then she talks to Horus and kind of says, hey, I'm Thanagarian, our world's gone, and she basically says, hey, why don't you spare us, and I will tell everyone that you're back. I'll tell all the other Thanagarians that you're around, and of your mercy. Isn't that what you're supposed to be, and all that? That you don't destroy the helpless. And he's like, oh, you are a true child of Horus. Yes, tell them. I will send you a dream when I found my people a new homeworld. So he's going to go look for a new world, a new Thanagar, effectively. So that stuff kind of sets up. So we kind of end up where, like, okay, all these Red Lanterns who were on the ship, like, are taken back to Oa and kind of willingly are, like, kept. Like, you know, Atrocitus doesn't sound thrilled that he's going into a science cell, but it's kind of like, hey, we're like, they don't actually tell him they're going to rebuild the power batteries, but it's kind of like, hey, we'll put you in the science cell and you'll be frozen until everyone can be safely woken up again. But it's definitely kind of this sort of, like, you know, frenemy kind of a vibe to it, where, you know, Atrocitus is still saying that, you know, he knows what rage feels like and how much it'll grow and all the rest of it. But it's just interesting status quo, which I'm very curious, like, if we get to a point later in this run where we literally do a break glass in case of emergency, we need an army. Oh, we've got Atrocitus and we've got all these other characters that we've been trying to, like, keep on ice because they're, you know, they're in danger because there's no power batteries to, like, funnel all the energy. That could be a big moment later down the line.
You also remember with the Red Lanterns, that Red Lantern energy takes all your blood, and that's what sustains you is the rage, is the power of that red, right? So they're essentially dead walking here, so that they have to be frozen so they can stay alive.
Yeah.
And so what if they can find a way to channel the energy, right? We get to that point, and they're, you know, the Starbreakers or whatever they're going to be called, the Sorrow Corps, are overwhelming everybody, and you get the Rage Lanterns coming out to help. That'd be super cool.
Yeah, no, I could see, especially if we end up filling these cells up with a few more people who could be, like, broken out as potential allies later in some big war. This idea that any emotion on the spectrum is, you know, they're all valid. I mean, we've talked about how there needs to be balance and they're all, like, a vital part of the entire thing. But this idea that the entire spectrum will unite to take on the lack of emotion, which is sorrow. Well, I mean, that isn't an emotion. You know what I mean? Like, that's the opposite of... it's good stuff.
And because it's all gray as well, right? And so you have the color spectrum at play here against whatever Starbreaker's up to with Sorrow, which is, you know, done in grays. Because they kind of did that against the Black Lantern Corps, right? In Blackest Night, but it was very an uneasy truce.
Yes.
So here them all being on the same side to unite because, you know, they're kind of one kind of force. I think that'd be super cool.
Especially since I think, like, if the other cores, at least some of them, are aware that the Green Lantern Corps have rebuilt their power batteries because that balance needs to be maintained, it feels like the truce would be a lot more, like, peaceful, a lot more amicable, and like understand. You know,
like, I was gonna say an actual truce, right? There's no conditions. It is, hey, we're all in this together kind of vibe. And, you know, checks and balances and all that stuff, because we've seen the red now. We've seen a little bit of Larfleeze with the orange,
a little bit,
and the Silver Core, right? We've seen a little bit of the yellow.
Yeah, there was
blue,
that. The yellow. We had that woman freaking out back in I think it was issue 1 of this book.
Of this one,
that character,
and then green, we're surrounded by. Blue, we haven't seen too much of. Like, Razor's been kind of the representative there, but I'm
sure we'll get there. I think the thing is that, I mean, maybe that'll be interesting to see how is Blue manifesting dangerous, because it's Hope, but maybe there will be a danger to it. Like, that'd be curious to see. I'm sure we're going to see them all, though, at different points.
Yeah, oh, for sure. And then Indigo's the one that we still, even under John's, we didn't really dig too deep into. Right, so I'm wondering how they're gonna spin all of that into.
Well, Indigo's whole thing is that the members were all, like, killers, or, you know, people who were turned good by the Indigo light. So are they all just bad right now? Are they all just going around being their old bad selves? That's an interest. That was definitely dangerous in and of itself, just because of that reason.
Yeah.
So,
and then I would say to round out the rest of the court, we saw with Carol and that entity, the Predator. We saw that in Green Lantern, you know, too. So we've touched kind of on all of them. So it's curious to see who's going to end up here you know, as we start to fill out the core.
Yeah, so John and Shiera have like a dinner together, and she talks about how he's, you know, kind of doing all right and inspiring, although she is a little concerned about this whole like sister construct, and you know, she sympathizes when she finds out that his mum died, and so it's kind of, I really like getting a couple of pages like this where you get to have the human drama come out a little bit, because you know, we really liked that moment last issue where they had the tension in the closet effectively. This was nice to have like John finally just talk to someone about like all the crazy things that's been happening to him. So you know, I think it's good. And then, you know, a little bit more Kilowog and Razor talking about what's going on, and just making sure Razor's doing all right. Honestly, if I ever critique about this issue, which I very much enjoyed, it's just that the final page is just kind of like, oh, we need a cliffhanger teasing danger, but we don't really have anything we want to reveal yet. So we basically just have Sorrow saying that, oh, me and Starbreaker are going to put a stop to all these cores. That's basically it. I mean, I guess the only notable thing is that he's on the Red Lantern homeworld, because we see all the dead Red Lanterns sitting around.
He's on, and it seems like there's some crystallized rage there, right? That was at the base of the power battery.
Yes.
You know, so if this is one of those things that they're going to need to build their own battery, you know, it seems like they're going out of their way to collect. So
yeah, I just think this last page was kind of a nothing cliffhanger, really, just because they need something to end the issue on. That's like the one critique I'd give it, but otherwise I really enjoyed this issue.
And just with the way that it ends, it could have ended on Kilowog and Razor going in, you know, to this new Green Lantern Hall, right? Going in. This almost feels like a superfluous like mid credit here, where it's like, oh, look what Sorrow's up to.
Yeah,
you know, so I kind of tacked on here at the end, but no, in with the way that it's handled, it's just one page, and I'm not didn't spoil too much for me.
Yeah, the art for PASARÍN's pretty solid as per usual. You know, he's one of those artists that I've always described as a very reliable house style type of artist.
And very, very much I associate with Green Lantern as PASARÍN.
That's fair, yeah. You know, I appreciate kind of the, like, not always perfect, but definitely a good, solid portrayal of like the facial emotions and things like that. Something like the dinner scene towards the end kind of requires like the apprehension or the happiness and various moments to kind of shine through, and I think it does for the most part. The big standout pages though absolutely are the, you know, it's the birth of Horus, and then like the Horus ripping the ship in two, and all that kind of stuff. And arguably even the moment where Atrocitus is absorbing all the red energy to try and save Zilius. I think that's the peak of the issue, is that moment where it feels like it's fleshing out that character quite a bit and making you kind of sympathize with them, and making it very clear that this isn't just, oh, Atrocitus is just a villain and that's all he is. No, there's a bit more to it than that.
Yeah, he's definitely nuanced, and Morgan Hampton, Jeremy Adams, don't forget that, which I appreciate.
Yeah. So, no, yeah, pretty good. I'm still enjoying this book. Matt, what are you giving Green Lantern Corps?
I'm going to give this an 8.5.
Yeah, I think I'll just go an 8, but I do really like it, particularly that stuff with Atrocitus in the middle. I really, really dug. So, and it feels like everything's building as well between both books, which is really nice too. So that's also cool.
I was gonna say, it's hard for me to not give an extra 0.5 to a metal space god.